Hey guys, I've got a joke to tell you. Word of warning though, this joke is going to take 1 hour to tell, and it won't have a punchline. Let's get started. Ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba-ba. Hey homies, welcome to Thumb Together TV. My name is Andrew Fantasia, and today we're going to be talking about Watchmen Episode 3 together. As usual, if you enjoyed this video, please feel free to give it a thumbs up and give some love to that subscribe button as well. Otherwise, I will be killed by space junk, just like the person in the title. I would love to know where the writers get the titles for these episodes, because they are some of the weirdest titles I have ever heard in TV history, man. I'm so curious. But enough about the title. This is an exciting episode for people who know Watchmen lore, because it's bringing the old characters back into the fold. Well, namely Silk Spectre, this old character. It's bringing her back into the fold. Now, I've not read the comics, like I've said, but I have seen the movie, so I'm familiar with the main characters from Watchmen. And what was neat about She Was Killed by Space Junk is that every single one of those characters gets at least a mention, if not more. So Silk Spectre, Ozymandias, Dr. Manhattan, Night Owl, Rorschach, the comedian, they all have at least a mention in this episode. So it's really nice to kind of spell out, even though we all could guess from the first two, it's nice to have the show more or less spell out that, hey, these characters all existed in this world, they all did this at one point in the past, and now the world has moved on. Silk Spectre is now an FBI agent who's working to bring down costumed vigilantes, because it's super illegal now to be a costumed superhero. And I think I understand her reasoning for this, except for one key X factor, which I'll get to. But it seems to me, Laurie has been through what the character went through in Watchmen. She saw Ozymandias blow up New York with the squid and whatever. She saw that Dr. Manhattan could not care less. She had had enough at that point. She saw all these costume superheroes around her doing things that were just not her style, and she's like, you know what? That's it. I'm through with this life. This is insanity. And now she wants to put all those costume heroes behind bars because it just reminds her of that horrific moment in her past, and she's just not a fan of them anymore. The X factor, though, is Night Owl. By the end of the story in the Watchmen comic, Laurie and Night Owl were romantically linked. They had a thing going on. But he was a costume superhero as well. In fact, he was one of the best. Now he's not around anymore. I think if what we've heard in these 3 episodes is correct, I think I heard somewhere in this shuffle that he's in prison, and he's been in prison for a long, long time. I don't know if she put him there. That would be a really dark twist to the end of their relationship. But if not, how does she feel about him? Was there some kind of rift in their beliefs that caused them to have irreconcilable differences? How did that play out? That's a really interesting, sad ending to that tale, if that's the case. I want to know more about Night Owl and Silk Spectre. But she's investigating the murder of Don Johnson's character, Judd, because she has strong reason to believe that he was murdered by a costumed vigilante, and that's a big no-no for her in the FBI. So she's running around trying to figure out who it was. Then she hears whisper that Angela Abar is this vigilante called Sister Night. Laurie is not a fan of vigilantes, so she goes and she has some very pointed talks with Angela at this funeral. Now, I loved these scenes. We only got a couple of them, and they were quick, but I loved these scenes between Angela and Laurie. Particularly, I just had a lot of fun with Angela's reaction at the end of the scene inside the crypt, because Laurie has her very typical badass, overly written speech about how gosh darn tough she is and how anybody who stands in her way is going to go down. And Angela's only response is to be like, ooh, and then she walks away. That really, really delighted me. And every time I see Angela, I like her more and more. And I really want to see her win. That's all I know for sure. In this absolute trio of crazy episodes we've gotten so far, all I know in my heart of hearts is I want to see Angela walk out of this okay. Which probably means that's not going to happen because, that's entertainment. That's tragedy? I don't know. I don't even know if this is supposed to be a tragedy or not. It probably will be, though. But I'll tell you what's not a tragedy. That is the sheer comedy of errors happening with Adrian Veidt. Because, we finally made it official. Jeremy Irons is playing Adrian Veidt, Ozymandias, the bad guy from the original Watchmen comic. Everybody kind of assumed, even HBO listed him in their cast as probably who you think he is. guess what? He is exactly who you think he is. They even got to show him in the costume, the OG Ozymandias costume, which was really, really neat. Even though it's kind of a silly costume, it was super cool to see him dressed in that. And what perfect casting. Okay, I gotta add that. I don't think I've mentioned it before. Jeremy Irons was perfectly cast for this because he looks exactly like an older version of both the way Ozymandias was drawn in the comic and the way Matthew Good looked when he played him in the movie. Like, it is uncanny. So whoever decided to cast Jeremy, like, bravo. That is... I'd be standing up, but then you would just see my midriff and this would turn into a whole different video. Now, what we've seen of Veidt and his cloned servants so far has been wacky is the best word to put it, though I can think of about 25 other words right now. However, what we got this episode was very telling, and I think now that I have seen what I've seen here, I have a theory regarding Veidt's predicament. Initially, in episode 1, I mentioned that he was living in a castle in England or Scotland or something. Makes sense. You see Jeremy Irons riding a horse, you think, oh, he's next to a British castle. It's Jeremy Irons. Why not? No, I'm changing my theory now. I think he's not in a castle on Earth. I think he is trapped on Mars. I think that after what happened with the giant squid and him killing a bunch of people in New York City and what have you, I think that Dr. Manhattan decided, okay, what you did was for the right reasons, but you're still a psychopath and I'm going to lock you up so you can never hurt other people again. So I think Dr. Manhattan took Adrian Veidt to Mars, somehow keeping him safe from space, whatever, put him in some kind of bubble or something where he's kind of trapped inside a snow globe. And this snow globe looks like he's on Earth. You can see the sun, you can see the moon and the stars, and he's got a castle and forests and trees and tomatoes and horses and all that. But he's not free, like he can't hop on a plane and go to Tulsa, Oklahoma and join the rest of the party. He is stuck on Mars. And the reason I think that is because of what he did with his servant this week. He fixes him up with some kind of ornate steampunk looking scuba/astronaut gear and is like, okay, venture into the great unknown. I think he's pulling a Shawshank here. Everything insane that we see Veidt doing is him trying to figure out ways to escape. Because remember, he's a super hyper genius. So he would be able to find out, oh, if I paint this fabric and put this thing on a knight's helmet, it's gonna maybe block out the vacuum of space. However, he's a bit unhinged. He's been, separated from the world for a long time. Maybe he doesn't have all the materials he needs, so it's not working. And poor Tom Meissen has to once again suffer a terrible, terrible fate by, presumably, because we don't see it happen, but I think walking outside of the bubble and having the vacuum of space kill him instantly. We didn't see the face of the game warden, because when Veidt shoots that buffalo, there's a game warden who's like, don't you take that buffalo skin. That's my buffalo. You go back to your castle. We have an arrangement. We don't know about this arrangement. We just hear it's by a person called the game warden. I'm going to straight up throw down that theory right now. The game warden is Dr. Manhattan, because we don't see his face at all. So I think there's some blue under there that they were hiding from us. And I think Manhattan knows that if he lets Veidt get too comfortable and too carried away with the animals that he placed in this nature preserve on Mars, because where else would you have a game warden than on a nature preserve, that Veidt is going to plan something devilishly tricky. So Manhattan's like, you didn't say the magic word, go back to your castle, behave yourself. That is what I think is going on here. I think that they are playing this sort of chess game with each other where Manhattan is like, you're staying here and I'm going to make sure you stay here, and Veidt is like, I'll get out someday. Why? Let's see what happens. Do you think I'm right? Is he trapped on Mars? Is Dr. Manhattan the game warden? What do you think is going on with Adrian Veidt? Let me know in the comments below. Anyway, that has been Watchmen episode 3. She was killed by space junk, whatever the hell that means. I'm Andrew Fantasia. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll see you here next time. And until then, adios.